Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to FrankieSense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin now.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Hello there, and welcome to FrankieSense and More. I am your host, Frankie Picasso, and today we're doing something a little different. I've got two ladies on from the Dynamic Women radio series, and in what I'm calling Trumpalooza, for a no-holds-barred discussion of all things Donald. The only rules of engagement are to be polite, and that includes you two callers. Say what you will, but show respect, and do not attack anyone's character who are giving their opinions on the show today. Please. As you know, FrankieSense is aligned with the United Nations global goals, and within 4 days of becoming president, Donald is already seriously impacting healthcare around the world, and we will speak to these things and more. But first, let me introduce you to my illustrious panel. Sandra Beck, she's the president of Beck Multimedia. I'm so sorry, Sandra. Owner-operator of Moms Incorporated. She's an author, coach, speaker, radio host, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. She runs a virtual empire of successful companies. She also hosts 5 radio shows: Military Mom, Powered Up Talk Radio, Dynamic Women, Coach Talk Radio, and Motherhood Talk Radio. She's an active contributor and participant in many charities. Sandra strives to make the world a better place for today's and our future's children, and near and dear to her heart are Toys for Tots, the World of Children, and Children Uniting Nation. Linda Franklin is also here with us. She was the first Canadian woman to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange and manage all male trading department for a leading Wall Street investment firm. After leaving Wall Street, she founded The Real Cougar Women, a company dedicated to educating women over 50 on how to be strong, sexy, and independent. More recently, she founded Shining Service Worldwide, an organization that supports the successful reintegration of military women to civilian life. Shining Service is a special women's project under Beacon House not-for-profit umbrella. Welcome, ladies.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, my gosh. I am so excited that you are here. Oh, is Cathy Krafve with us?
Yes.
Hi, Cathy. I'm so sorry.
No, listen, I'm just so honored and privileged. You know I love hanging out with you gals.
Oh, wow. This is great. We have pro-Trump and we have, not pro-Trump with us today. And you guys can figure out who you are. But I just wanted to talk about all things Trump because it's kind of an interesting situation. 5 days in from becoming president, Donald is saying that the biggest fraud in American history has happened, that, millions of illegal votes on election day were false and were falsified. And even though he is president and he's saying that these votes were, for Hillary and not for him, he's making an issue out of it. Now, why would he make an issue out of it? And if it's true, as Joy said Joy Behar said on The View, let's have a redo. Anybody, take it away.
Jump in, because the one thing we can count on for Donald Trump is to make a big stink about everything. There is not one thing the man can talk about without having a hissy fit. I mean, every single photo you look at him, he's mouth open like a big, giant, largemouth bass, and he's yelling about something. And I am, for one, glad, because it gets people talking. We wouldn't have this show today without his big mouth. And whether you like him, love him, hate him, ignore him, he stirs the pot. And I'm so glad that the American people, including myself, are finally waking up and talking about real issues, real problems, and not what's going on Dance Moms. That's my rant.
Anybody?
I'm saying amen to that. I think among these women, we all love to visit and we love to be polite with each other about it. But our culture has become so polarized. I really think we need to be instructing our children how to, and actually anybody we can get to listen, how to have a conversation without being so painfully dogmatic.
Linda Franklin.
Oh, my God. Well, talk about painfully dogmatic. I mean, you're talking about the man. I mean, he is all the things that he's done since he's been president, and God knows how long before, are all political theatrics. I mean, he's there and he's has these photo shoots, and he has, he's putting all of these executive orders in. I mean, we all know that all of those things are not going to happen. But anything to make Donald look good, it's all about Donald. That press conference on Saturday night about the inaugural crowds. I mean, I felt very sorry for Sean Spicer, and I don't know why somebody just doesn't speak up and say something, because whoever did that speech or is advising him ought to be fired because they're out of their minds.
I thought he wrote that himself. It's really kind of funny. He's like a little boy, and he has to, and all of the little players, he has to have all the marbles on his side. It's really funny to listen to him. He is obsessed. He's obsessed, that he didn't have the popular vote, although today, I was listening to an interview last night where he said, I did have the popular vote. I did. If, without Hillary cheating and having these extra votes that, went to her, I did have the popular vote. Who cares? Like, they're going, who cares? You're president. Why are you making this an issue?
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Cathy.
Well, what I was going to say is I think we're going to see the next 4 years, he's either going to be able to deliver on some of his promises, in which case I think next time he will win the popular vote, because our country has really, at least where we are, I know Texas is somewhat in a bubble economically, but we've really felt this recession that we've been in Texas even. And so I feel like if he makes some of the changes, like I personally love the way he met with the union bosses and also the executives from the car industry. I like it that he brought everybody. I know they didn't come to the table together, but I like that he was reaching out to both sides of that conversation instead of just picking a side.
Let me ask you something, Cathy. Does it scare you or bother you that possibly, allowing organizations and taking down some of the red tape that stops people from coming in and building and starting an organization that will hire potentially millions of people. But you have pollution issues. Does that bother you that with car companies that there's possibly pollution that,
for me,
they could, all those stats and everything, they're just going to go out the window and they say, whatever it takes, make money.
I mean, for me, I'm kind of a true conservative in that, but I'm also pragmatic. I really love the balance of taking care of this world that we live on and still remembering that families need income, they need jobs, they need work. So to me, I really like kind of a moderate view, I guess. I don't know. I don't like extremes in either direction. I'll just put it that way. I like to be somewhere close to the middle where we're being very practical, very compassionate, and also conservative in the way we use our resources. So I'm probably some kind of a hybrid. I don't prefer one party over the other, except that I do tend to lean toward, I'll just tell you because of my experience with abortion, I tend to lean toward anything that makes pro-life and the idea of life more secure. I kind of like that. So I think for some people that might seem very conservative, but for myself, I think of myself as very practical.
Sandra?
I look at the country, the big disasters that we're in. We need a business mindset to get us out of this. And, I've always felt, with a lot of charity work that I do and a lot of the companies I work with, that the charities need to be run like a business. Our country needs to be run like a business. So, okay, we've got a good businessman that's going to do it. Does he have his flaws? Absolutely he does. But I think there's also all this hysteria. It's like, the sky is falling. Donald Trump said something. It's like, big deal. He's got a big mouth. He shoots his mouth off. This isn't an oligarchy. This isn't a monarchy. He's not going to put a gavel down and immediately change the laws. We do have checks and balances in this country. We do have voices. We did get out and march. And you know what? We might have to march every week if that's what it takes. But the guy's only been in office 5 days, and everybody acts like the sky is falling. I don't think it's going to be as successful as Trump says, but I don't think it's going to be as big a disaster as the naysayers say.
Linda?
I'm listening, but, listen, I have nothing against Trump being president. He's going to be president, and we're going to see. I don't like the man. I think the man is a blowhard. I don't think the man is real. I think the man has got some really, really bad issues. I mean, I watched the inauguration. My husband wouldn't even watch it on Friday, but I watched the way he got out of cars, leaves his wife at the curb, goes up and shakes Obama and Michelle's hand as they're leaving, and she has to trot up the stairs on her own and present him with this big Tiffany box. I mean, Michelle looked like she was going to fall off the stairs. The man. What you see is not what you get. He's not real. And the way he treats women is so atrocious that, including his own wife. I bet you she couldn't wait the hell to get out of there and get back to New York, because I don't know how she can possibly stand being around him. So it's let's see what he does. I'm willing to give him a shot to see how much of this actually helps the country. But as far as the man goes, I think he's pitiful.
Well, I want to bring up the 2 points. First, the march. I mean, the Women's March, he was upset that the Women's March had more people in attendance than his own, so he exacerbated the numbers and made his 250,000 to millions, which is good for you. Okay, we're happy for you. The other is the abortion issue that you just brought up, Cathy. With the gag rule that he just implemented, the World Health Organization, HIV, CDC, Peace Corps, they stand to lose $9 billion if they mention the word abortion at all ever, and they're required to sign a bill to that effect. The global health world is reeling right now. And these implications are potentially enormous. Anybody? We got 1 minute to break. You can think about that for a minute.
I just think he's going to set back women, back to the dark ages, and I think that's a horrible thing. I don't know. He's going to appoint people to the Supreme Court, whether or not they get in. I know there is another side, so they may stall it like the Republicans did when Obama put in a nominee. But the whole thing is theatrics. I mean, who knows what he really believes, because he keeps changing his mind. One day he's this, and one day he's that. So it's very hard to believe anything he says.
I think it's an important issue. I hope when we come back from the break, we will talk about it some more.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about it some more. We're going to go to a commercial break very soon. Contentious. There's issues, both sides, like, dislikes. It's great. And it does make for conversation, and it does make for, reasonable conflict. But it doesn't mean that hate has to, we have to hate one another. It means that we can discuss and talk like reasonable human beings. And we're going to show you how to do that as soon as we come back. Don't go anywhere.
We're just getting warmed up. FrankieSense and more will be right back after we pay the bills.
It's words you never heard.
Did you know a dentist invented the first electric chair? Just thinking about going to the dentist makes me feel like I'm headed for death row. What's a word for the fear of a dentist? Odontophobia. Bruxomania is another word for the compulsive grinding of one's teeth. Early toothbrushes were twigs with frayed ends. Toothpaste in a tube was made available to the public in 1892 and was called Dr. Scheffel's Cream Dentifrice. Now Americans buy 14 million gallons of toothpaste every year. In Mexico, the tooth fairy is called the tooth mouse. Half of all Americans say that a smile is the first thing they notice about a person. It's easy to spot a person with a fake smile, otherwise known as an exedesiast.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's words you never heard.
Well, for the 19th consecutive year, the Labrador Retriever is the most popular dog in America. We used to own a yellow lab, and she was constantly jumping up and knocking things off the coffee table. I guess labs can be a bit clumsy at times. What are other words for clumsy? Hummelty-jummelty and humperty-clumperty. Rounding out the 10 most popular breeds in America are German Shepherds, Yorkshire Terriers, Golden Retrievers, Beagles, Boxers, Dachshunds, Poodles, and Shih Tzus. Dachshunds actually make a good pull toy for little kids because they've already been stretched. Apparently, beagles can be difficult to train as they can be habber-blabber or strong-willed. Why is it dogs get annoyed when you blow in their face, but take them for a ride in the car and they'll stick their head out the window?
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my new app, Too Funny for Words.
It's FrankieSense and more. It's Trumpalooza. It's Cathy Krafve's here. Sandra Beck is here. Linda Franklin is here. And even our own producer, Karina Love is here. And Karina, I'm just going to bring you on for a moment because, I know that you're from Texas, just like Cathy, and you were involved with the League of Women's Voters. You're the VP, in fact, for your region, right?
Yeah, well, for the organizational part, which is basically I just make sure that the meetings happen, and if somebody comes into town, I book that, and then I work on memberships. I'm over the memberships. So I know that you personally were not a Trump voter. Yes, this is true.
You're young. For that, you're a millennial.
Privacy of votes.
So what made you not want to vote for Trump? What were the issues?
Well, part of it was just I don't really share the same values that he does, and just like the different things. Well, actually, just the parties, really. But I do sometimes. I'm kind of like Cathy. I kind of pull from all parties, and there's just different things that I do agree with, and I don't really agree with. But I think it's just like a personal issue, especially with his executive order of the abortion law, or not law, but the thing that the
gag rule.
Sign. Yes, and I just know like some people personally that have had to struggle with the options of either getting an abortion or putting their child up for adoption, which the child may or may not be adopted and would be into the system, which I am definitely not. I don't like the system, and I think it should probably change to something a little bit different. Or just, if, I guess, if like pro-life and whatnot, if like we could all just kind of get together and just like figure out what to do with the system, because it's just horrible. I've had friends that I went to high school with that they were in foster care or they were just part of the system, and they just had a really hard time. And I don't know, it's just like either something has got to change or we just have to get together and just figure something out. But with the League of Women Voters, that is a nonpartisan organization, and we are definitely for like women's rights and votes, and just kind of getting the information out there to everybody about each candidate and all that goodness. But yeah, they're very nonpartisan. But other than that, from my point of view, it's just personal views, different things. But willing to give them a try just to see what's going on. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Sandra, I know that we talked the other day, and you're pro Trump, and you're maybe not pro Trump too, but you said that you did some work for him and you got paid, and so this issue of him not paying workers in your case wasn't true. You were treated fairly.
That's the thing. It's like, we can all go through our lives and experience people in their good and bad moments. And when you look at somebody like Trump, he's almost like a mythical feature or a mythical figure. You can't even imagine, as Linda said, like, how can Melania be married to him? Well, she sees a side in him, that we don't see. She's the one that lays down with him at night. And who knows, maybe he's a big teddy bear in his personal life. I dated a Navy SEAL commander that was like a tub of goo. He was like a marshmallow when he stepped out of his role of being a Navy SEAL commander. And I'm like, oh my God, you're such a puss, like in my house. And so, we don't know these things. But one of the things that I will say, and I encourage everybody to look this up, there's a thing called the Socratic method. And that's where it's like a form of argumenting dialogue between people. And it's based on asking questions and making inflammatory statements to stimulate critical thinking and to draw out all these different ideas and underlying presumptions. And one of the things that Trump does, and, I'm pro-Trump in some ways, I'm anti-Trump in a lot of ways. He's a complex human being. But one thing he really does great is he takes that hot poker, sticks it right in the middle of the log and shoots the flames up. And everybody reacts. And when I field through all the reactions of Cathy Krafve, of Linda Franklin, of Frankie Picasso, or anybody on the news, there's always in there something that makes me think. And anybody who can make a population think really gets my He didn't get my vote, but he gets my support.
You know, I look at him and I think, you're just a shit disturber. That's all you are. You thrive on controversy, and he loves it. You can see it in his face. He just loves it. Let's talk a minute about, you know, his report to move the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Like, that is just a real shit disturber move. Like, there's no reason for it except to get everybody upset, Jews and, you know, Palestinians. Why? You know, like, Jerusalem is sacred to Jews and Christians and Muslims around the world. That it needs to stay that way, I think. So why would you do that? Why would you poke that beast?
Especially
5 days in?
Is that not an endorsement of what the Jewish people, the Israelis, want? I thought they wanted their capital to be. No,
they don't. They want it to stay in Tel Aviv because they know that it's just going to promote more hatred in the Arab world if it moves. They know that. Maybe his son-in-law wants it. You know, I mean, to me, I mean, you know, you look at nepotism thrives. But
I will tell you that in the process of deciding who I would vote for in this last election, one of the things that comforted me was the fact that he has a Jewish son-in-law that I felt he respected. For me, I was just ready for our allies, our alliance with Israel, to be strengthened. I felt that it had deteriorated over the last few years, and I'm not comfortable with that. I feel that Israel, being a democracy, is an excellent ally for us in the Middle East. So I'm not saying they're the only ally we should have there, but I am saying I find that to be one of the best things about Trump.
Interesting. Anybody else? Linda? Any thoughts on that?
You know, it remains to be seen. I know that Netanyahu and Obama didn't have a very good relationship, and I know that now Trump has invited Netanyahu to come to Washington in February, and we'll have to see. I mean, that, you know, if Trump thinks he is going to fix the Middle East because he's Trump, I mean, it's been at war for God, you know, for centuries. So I don't know what he's going to do.
2,000 years.
2,000 years. I mean, and he thinks, you know, that's it. He thinks that he can go in and fix all of these things, but this is his political theatrics. He just spouts off, and he gets everybody in a tizzy, and God knows what's going to happen. So I don't know. You know,
tizzies are scary.
We'll just have to wait and see. But, you know, every day is a photo op, and that's pretty scary stuff.
It's interesting that the wall has now come up. He says that, you know, we're going to start putting the wall up probably within the next month. The wall's going to go up. Yeah, America's going to pay for it in the beginning. Mexico will pay for it in the end. He said the Mexican president says he's not going to pay for the wall. He says it goes against the dignity of our country and our people. And Trump goes, he has to say that. He goes, it'll be paid. It may be a complicated form of payment, but it will be paid. Now, how big was that as part of the your voting, Linda?
You know, let me just talk about first of all, the Mexican president who was supposed to go to Washington next week just canceled the trip, so he's not coming. Mm-hmm. And you know, and it's really, you know, the people that have emigrated from or you know, crossed over from illegally from Mexico over the years has really declined a lot. And a lot of the people that are coming in illegally are not even Mexicans. They're coming from other, you know, they're coming through other countries through Mexico into the U.S. So, I mean, again, it's a lot of stuff. The thing about Trump is he just spouts off and he doesn't have his facts. And, you know, that's been through the campaign and, you know, just fact check, and he doesn't have his facts. So I don't know. I don't think the wall's going to happen.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm not sure what's happening with our sound, but
like Zod, you know, like the Superman movie, like kneel before Zod, you know, and he just sits up there and says what he wants. But you know, it's up to us. Like I'm going to be like my freedom beater and my congressional, you know, and Democratic everything right now. But our country is founded on the ability to challenge our government. It is not just our right, but it is our duty and obligation to challenge our government when it is not right. So that's what we're doing. And, Trump doesn't perform in a vacuum. And you could take the photograph of him with his big mouth, and his scowly face, just, that picture with
fast mouth.
We could run that same photo for the next 25 years and it'll never change, because that's who he is. That's his theatrics. But it's our job. And I think Trump is America's wake-up call. I don't think it's about making America great with him. I think it's about making him great. But you know what? If we want to poke the beast and make Donald Trump angry so that he can prove us wrong and he can make America great just to prove us wrong when we say he isn't, go for it, buddy, because you've bitten off a big piece of pie. We expect you to chew it. We expect you to not let us down, because you're the one who will be the fool in the end. And working with that guy, he doesn't want to play the fool. So I'm guardedly hopeful that he's going to do what he says he can do, because his ego will not let him fail.
Well said. Cathy, do you have something to say?
Well, I mean, what I think I interrupted earlier. What I started to say is on the topic of the wall, I was really surprised in Texas how much traction that had, because I personally have so many friends from all walks of life. And I knew, to me, it's somewhat disturbing, I guess, because I traveled in China during the 70s. And my fear has always been, well, if you build a big chain link fence, you can keep your citizens in as easily as keep other people out. So I felt the wall was not a topic that was going to gain much traction, but I was wrong about that. People here in Texas are very frustrated with the way it's working. Of course, I was hoping they would deal with some of the other social issues. I loved what Karina said earlier about our foster care system here in Smith County. We're just burdened with so many children who can't find forever homes. And so I think I would just say on abortion, on foster care, on the wall, on immigration, on illegal immigration, which are two separate things in my mind, and on jobs, these are very complex issues. And so
they are. And I'm going to have to stop you. I'm sorry, because we're going to go to another commercial break, Cathy. But keep that thought. When we come back, we're going to talk about those issues and more. Don't go anywhere. Go to the bathroom, but then come back. Make sure you do that.
Getting warmed up. FrankieSense and more will be right back after we pay the bills.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Depression is very real and prevalent. It has been said that close to 20% of Americans are likely to suffer major depression at some time. The good news is that exercise helps ease depression and is one of the best ways to fight it. Working out releases endorphins and neurotransmitters that make you feel good. It reduces immune system chemicals that can worsen depression. Exercise also has many emotional and psychological benefits. Working out is a distraction that gets your mind off of negative thoughts and depressing feelings. By focusing on your workout, you can get out of that negative cycle and concentrate on your fitness. By accomplishing exercise goals, you can boost your self-confidence. Getting in shape can make you feel better about your appearance, and that helps too. If you are battling depression, you have even more of a reason to work out. Feeling good awaits you. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
It's Merging Never Heard.
I always get a kick out of the warning labels companies attach to prevent lawsuits from the hooky-crooky of this world. A warning label on a dishwasher cautioned not to put any person in the unit. Speaking of dishwashers, one product warning on a television remote control read, "Not dishwasher safe." That's too bad, because we know how dirty the remote control gets. In fact, we press the buttons even harder when we know the battery is dead. What are we, part of the ridiculati? A warning on a baby stroller read, "Remove child before folding." Here's one for the blunderbusses and popinjays among us. A label on a letter opener read, "Safety goggles recommended." Call me snarky, but any society that needs this many disclaimers has too many lawyers, pettifoggers, and snollygosters.
It's Merging Never Heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Hey, you're listening to FrankieSense and More. I am Frankie Picasso. This is a show where anything goes. Sandra Beck is with us from California. Cathy Krafve, you heard last, from Texas. Linda Franklin is from New York. Cathy, I said when we came back we would pick up your thought.
Well, I was just going to finish by saying I'm with Sandra on this. I had reservations about some of Trump's attitudes toward women, and that's just putting it kindly. But I also love the way I'll say this. Years ago, somebody told me I was kind of provocative, and I was kind of horrified, really, knowing my background. I was like, well, I've tried to overcome that. But she meant I was a provocateur, like stirring up conversation. And I think Trump has a real gift for that. And our country has been so divided that we couldn't even talk. So on that point, I think I really admire him for getting the conversation heated. And there's, the more brains in the room, the more brains involved in the conversation, the more likely we are to find good solutions.
Well, I want to talk about the misogyny for a moment, because I might personally find it rather despicable. And there was a thing going on Facebook where Obama was talking about his daughters, and he was saying how educated and intelligent and kind they are. And Trump just talks about, his daughter's boobs. Like, I mean, there's a difference. There's a huge difference in being respectful towards women. Like Sandra, you mentioned, with the wife being left at the curb. One thing I will say about my husband is, he always opens the car door. He even puts my seatbelt on for me. 10 years later, he's still doing it. And, that's a really nice thing. And when I see a man being so disrespectful to women, women's issues, yes, I know that it was important for you for the pro-choice, but, but here we go. Now, organizations, huge organizations, World Health organizations around the world are going to lose out because of that one word. Like, it's insane.
All right, I'm going to jump in here and say, I think he's a pig, okay? He's a pig. He always will be a pig. He's never going to change. He's always going to be a pig. But I would rather have a man walking around as a pig so that I know what I'm dealing with and I know what to watch out for than somebody who pretends to have these great respect for women and really doesn't. Because I think all of us have experienced that. It's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And nobody's going to come to this position perfectly. If Hillary had come to this position or Trump come to this position, there's always going to be upsides and downsides like there are to every human being. I will say at least Donald doesn't hide who he is, and he doesn't hide his failings, which means I can deal with that, but I can't deal with what I don't know.
But Sandra, here's a man who has the highest office in the country, and he's a pig. Okay, you might know he's a pig, but he's still a pig. Clinton, I thought, was a pig. And he always had a smirk on his face that looked like he was hiding a dirty secret to me. And I wanted to ask you ladies, with Hillary losing the election, somebody had said to me that the other day about it. And I said, well, how come she didn't get the ladies' votes? And I said, maybe some women, I don't know, maybe some women were disturbed about the fact that she traded in, a life in office for kicking her husband out for being an adulterer nationally on TV. Like, did that piss anybody off?
I don't think that's why she lost an election. I think she lost an election because they were too cocky, and they believed that they couldn't lose the election, and she didn't reach out to the people like Trump did. Trump was out there every day. He was talking. He was doing his thing. He was getting these crowds, and she wasn't doing that. And I think that's what lost the election. Of course, all these emails and the FBI didn't help her, but right. I think the main reason was that she wasn't relatable, and she really didn't have a very firm. He's a branding master. Let's make America great again. He was doing that. And the Democrats, they really had nothing. They didn't have anything that was really firm and solid that people could really, get their teeth into. So I think, she lost the election. Is it sad? Yeah, but there's one thing I do agree with Sandra, and that is we needed this. We needed this kick in the ass. We needed this upheaval. However it's going to turn out, and it's going to be a wild ride, that we are going to maybe finally get our eyes open to what we've come to in this country, and really then find solutions how to fix it.
Let me ask you something. What if Mexico does what Cuba did and doesn't allow Americans in? Us Canadians loved Cuba. We got to go there. It was cheap. It was a wonderful holiday place to holiday.
Forget that. I mean, I think one of our, that's not going to happen. But I think that the thing that that's really pretty dangerous right now is our relationship with China, and of all these goods that are made in China and the exports and imports going back. And he's going to import. If you do business in China, he's going to put on excise taxes of it coming back into this country. So iPhones might be 25% higher than they are now. I mean, how's that going to how's that going to play into your area? I don't think people are going to be very happy. And meanwhile, China's pissed. I mean, I think, yes, I agree that America has been too lenient on all of our trading partners, but there has to be some moderation, and you can't. I mean, China. We are very important to China, but China is important to us too. So it's. Hopefully we can fix these things, but we can't be that dogmatic about it. There's got to be some sort of compromise.
I kind of don't believe that Americans are going to like American-made when they have to pay American-made prices. Personally, I don't think so. We got too used to paying cheaper prices for things, and how many businesses are going to go out of business when they have to start paying $35 an hour or $40 an hour for American who won't work for $12 or $13?
That's right, and if we start slapping on a tax like they do in Canada, what's it called, the GMT tax?
14%. The GST, 14% we pay.
Yeah, I don't think the Americans are going to be too happy with that, and I think that their popularity will turn very, very quickly if that happens. He's good for big business. A lot of the corporations, when the big taxes are going to, the corporate taxes are going to come down. I don't know. You saw what's been happening on Wall Street since he's been. I mean, we crossed over 20,000 yesterday, and he's taking credit for all of it. But I think reality is going to set in, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But some of these things sound very good in theory, but I don't think that they're in actuality they'll work at all.
Cathy, you want to speak about small business?
Yeah, we're small business owners here in Texas. We're in the oil industry, and I will tell you, we feel like we've been double taxed for a while now. So the talk of reducing taxes really sounds good to us. We're taxed on our small business, which is just a small family-owned company. We're not big people. Mm-hmm. And then we also are taxed at home and everywhere else, sales tax and everything. We don't even have a personal income state tax here in Texas, so we get some relief on that. But we also have all the local taxes for our schools and so forth. But anyway, so for us, the talk of reducing taxes, everybody says that's going to help big business, but I will tell you, I have talked to people from all walks of life and all ethnic backgrounds, and that is one reason people voted for Trump in this last election, because small business owners are feeling swamped.
Let me ask you about real estate taxes, because I know, prices around your country vary greatly, depending upon what state you live in. You can buy a house or you can't afford to buy a house. California, it's really hard to buy a house, I think, Sandra. They're really, really expensive for not a whole lot of stuff. What kind of property taxes would you be paying, let's say, in Texas for maybe a 2,000 square foot home?
Oh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. I can't remember. I think I have a piece of property I pay taxes on, and my bill's probably coming due, but I hadn't looked at it this year. But so just guessing, if that property is worth $100,000, I'm expecting to pay $1,000 on taxes on it this year, but I'm not sure about that. And I will tell you, it differs whether you're talking about your homestead, which is exempt in Texas from lawsuits, but you still have to pay taxes on your homestead. The tax laws here are a little bit complicated in my mind. Maybe they are everywhere. That's one of the things people are really tired of. But as far as the difference between properties, like here you can get an agricultural you have a different tax bracket for people.
Yeah, it's easier to buy agricultural, I think.
Yes.
But people around, like I'm from Canada, I live in Canada, many young people can't afford to buy a home. It's like 25% down now in order just to get a mortgage. You have to have that money. Is it the same where you live?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll jump in for California.
Yeah.
Say I pay almost $800 a month on my property tax alone. So that's like a mortgage in other parts of the country.
Right.
But I'm just going to jump in here and tack back for a second and let you know that as a California small business owner, I'm a single mom with 2 kids and an 80-year-old dad running a technology company. And my company is taxed so heavily and things are so expensive. My health insurance went through the roof. My coverage went down. And the stimulus that was out there in the past was not there, and it was extraordinarily hard to make a living. So home payment, home health care, all these things have skyrocketed beyond what the small businessman can afford, and it's crippling.
Yeah, I think that health care is a very big deal. If you had told me 30 years ago when we got married that our health care, our private health insurance that we pay for would be more than our house payment every month, I would have just laughed. I mean, I could not imagine that. And just back to that question of can young people afford homes in Texas, I think we're still on the lower end of what it costs to have a home here, to buy a home in Texas is on the lower end of the scale compared to some other states. And so we're still a good buy for young people. And the young people I know, we have a really amazing university system here, especially in Smith County. So education is pretty prevalent and it's available to really, one of our junior colleges here has the mandate they have to take everyone and then get them up to speed so they can go to college. So we've really got that our Texas legislature has done a really good job on that. So education is high and in my mind and available.
Education is high in my mind too, Cathy. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
What I mean is a high percentage of the population have access to education. The numbers are high on those who can access college educations here. It is expensive, though.
Well, that's another thing. America has come down the scale in education as far as where it ranks in the world. I want to talk about that when we come back. We're coming back in about 30 seconds. But, what kind of debt are your kids walking out of school with, and how are they starting their life? And that's something I think is really important to talk about. So when we come back, we'll talk about education. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about. You can give us a call if you want, 903-787-5887, or Linda Franklin, you've been quiet for a moment. Maybe you should jump in as soon as we come back. Think about something. Take care, everybody. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Heck no. We're just getting warmed up. FrankieSense and more will be right back after we pay the bills.
It's words you never heard.
I managed to run out of coffee again this morning. I didn't even have enough to make 1 cup. Boy, was that a miskabobble or big mistake, because I make serious coffee, so strong it wakes up the neighbors. Now, I don't have a problem with caffeine. I have a problem without caffeine. I get wadgety and burkety. Did you know apples are more efficient than coffee for keeping people awake in the morning? Unfortunately, I didn't have any apples either. Acorns were used as a coffee substitute during the American Civil War. Without my hot cup of coffee in the morning, I'm feeling pretty squirrely myself. What do you call that piece of cardboard that wraps around your coffee cup to keep from burning your hand? A zarf.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's words you never heard.
If you're like me, every year you wonder how you're going to dispose of your live Christmas tree. In the desert climate around Reno, Nevada, Christmas trees that are left outside won't decompose. They will just get drier and drier, eventually becoming a serious fire hazard. Vince Thomas, the founder of Goat Grazers, a goat herding business, is now using his 40 goats to help recycle Christmas trees. Hey, I'm not kidding. We all know goats are known to eat just about anything. Thomas used dendrology, or the study of trees, to discover the trees are a natural dewormer for goats, and the pine is very high in vitamin C, so it's healthy for them as well. What's a word for the pine needles that fall off a Christmas tree? Diddle Dees.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and for more Words You Never Heard, check out my podcast at wordsyouneverheard.com.
And we're back. It's FrankieSense and more. Sandra Beck is with us. Cathy, Krafve, Linda Franklin. Linda, you are Canadian. You're in America now, and on our break you were talking to me about, let's talk about Canada. Let's see, people think, oh, you got free healthcare, it's so wonderful. We do have free healthcare, and you know what, it is really nice to be able to go to a hospital and not have to pay out the yazoo. I wonder how so many people in the United States, they lose their homes after going, you have to be in a hospital for a week. My gosh, it's crazy. But
I know, and now now Trump's
ahead.
going over, he's going after the drug companies because, the price of prescription drugs here is crazy. A lot of Americans are going across the border to get their drugs. But, it's not nirvana. I mean, I'm from Canada, so I have a little bit of an understanding of it. And you guys are taxed up the yin-yang on everything because somebody's got to pay for the health care. There's no free lunches. So, I mean, health care is a problem. Obama came with Obamacare. He got millions and millions of people on a health care program that never were on before. I understand how it was okay, and then the premium started to skyrocket. But here he now Trump is coming in and says, okay, we're going to abolish it, and then he said, no, we can't abolish it. We'll amend it. And now as of this morning, there's no timeline on this, but he promises that no American shall go without health care. So if it was an easy problem, they would have done it, years and years ago. It's a tough problem, and our society is getting older. Healthcare costs are crazy. So, I don't know. I hope that there's some very, very smart people there that are going to be able to figure this thing out, because I hear Sandra's plea about how expensive it is to be a single mom and have your kids and want to go to the doctor, and you can't afford it. It's when you have insurance.
That scares me. That parents can't take kids to the doctor because you're afraid, you can't afford it. Like, that is, in a country as affluent as America, that should not be the case.
One of the practices, I'm just going to share this, and this is an on the record practice, but I have two friends in town who are nurses, and they tell me that they get a call sometimes once a day from a local parent saying, this is the symptoms my kid has. Do I need to take him to the doctor? And these nurses say, look, I can't advise you, but if it was my kid, I would wait. I would no. And they're violating their nursing license every time. But they know that these parents have to make the decision between food on their plate, paying their mortgage, paying their car payment, or taking their sick child to the doctor.
Well, that is something that we do have here. It's called telehealth, and you can call up telehealth. It is staffed by nurses, and you can give the symptoms of your child. I think my son, drank poison or whatever it is, and they will tell you what to do. And so that is a free service, and I think that's wonderful, because you know what? Although healthcare is free, it's not free, like Linda said. And you can't just have all of these, run an emergency room like it's a clinic. Like my kid has a cold. Figure it out before you come, triage. I agree with that, and so they should have more of that. They should have more programs like that where parents can call in. Hey, you know what? You're not a doctor. You don't have a license. Linda, you said that, Cathy, you said that in Bethesda Health Clinic, it's the antidote to the healthcare crisis.
Yeah, those of us who volunteer and give donations to the Bethesda Health Clinic, we call it the antidote to the healthcare crisis. And it's a wonderful little clinic that started in one of the churches here, and then they allowed all the churches and all the community to participate in growing this beautiful little clinic. And now it's become quite big, actually, and the hospitals here love it because they have a very defined mission, and they complement another organization called St. Paul's, which is a little Catholic church in town, and they began a ministry for children. So the Bethesda Health Clinic does the adults, and St. Paul's takes the children, and all the doctors in town volunteer at these two clinics and take referrals from them, and then the whole community supports it. But the main thing that is so popular here, especially in Smith County, Texas, they take no government funding at all. So people really step up to help that because we're so committed to people helping themselves here.
Sandra?
Well, I look at that and I think that would be so great, and that would probably work really well in the small town I grew up with. But if you tried to do that in LA or New York City or Chicago, like what a stampede. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, because one of the things, and this is where I'm going to go back on Mr. Trump and say, we have everything in this country from small towns to huge cities. We have real problems that need real solutions, and they're really complicated. There's no one size fits all. We're not Switzerland in a little teeny pocket of the world. And we've got big problems that need to be solved in the healthcare crisis. There's stuff that needs to start somewhere. And it's so great that Cathy Krafve brings up what's being done in Bethesda, because you know what? If we can create 1,000 Bethesdas in the United States, hey, guess what? It offloads from the emergency rooms. It offloads from the medical bills that have to be generated and the medical billing. And, we've got a mess. And the other thing happens is, Cathy, what do they do? Do people, when they come into the clinic, do they ask them for ID?
Yes, they do. In fact, you have to have a tax return.
So they have to be a legal citizen to be treated.
They have to have a job, and that gets complicated. And I do want to share, I have something called the Bethesda Brief that I created to send to all our elected officials so we could export this idea. I just think it's so fabulous and it works so well here. And honestly, our politicians haven't been that interested in hearing from me. But in Tyler, the way they do that in Smith County is you have to have a job, which sounds harsh, but they also have a business that they've created that sells recycled clothing. And so they plug people into that and they get them job skills. And they also complement. So for instance, is a single, say I'm 58 years old, which I am, and I suddenly get a divorce and I go to Christian Women's Job Corps to get training. Whether I have a job or not, Bethesda will take me as a client. If I go to the crisis center here, Bethesda will take me as a client. If I'm on the street, homeless, and I find my way to the Salvation Army, Bethesda, and I still don't have a job, Bethesda will still take me as a patient. So one thing we do in East Texas is we collaborate. Our nonprofits here do not overlap. If we can, there is a real commitment to that goal of not overlapping services.
Nice. I don't think we have that much time left, but I wanted to just talk for a moment about one more policy that's going to be decided in the next 4 weeks for Trump, and it's about the undocumented immigrants. Now, Trump was asked, should they worry? Are you going to send them away? They've lived here, kids who were born, whatever. Are you going to send them away? And he says, well, I have a big heart. And he goes, well, should they be worried? He goes, well, they shouldn't be worried. I have a big heart, but I'm not going to say anything until, it's been decided. What the hell does that mean? Is he or isn't he?
No, because here's some of the issues, and I'm really close to this because I have a family member who married into a heavily immigrant family here in California, and you've got 5 or 6 kids that are American citizens. The mother came here illegally, brought across the border by some of our big fruit growers. They were transported here by American business in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then all of a sudden now, if you didn't get in that amnesty, you're in trouble. So I think there's going to be so many lawsuits preventing him from just coming in and scooping up all these illegal immigrants who've been here, some of them since the 1950s, who were brought here by American companies. I mean, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, a class action lawsuit. And I really don't think he cares so much about the gardeners and the housekeepers, the people who are working, but the people here who commit crimes, they're easy to deport. They're pretty easy to identify because they're caught. And I think those are the people that everybody's mad about. Nobody's mad at the manicurists and the nannies and the housekeepers and the people who are coming here like my family did as service people, shop owners, butchers, a nanny, a housekeeper. We all came at some point. Now, granted, my family came legally, but only a couple generations ago, not any farther than my grandparents. So I think it's one of those things where it's also got to be reasonable. Where are you going to fund all this stuff? How are you going to fund the wall? How are you going to fund the illegal immigrant transport home? I mean, at the end of the day, Trump is talking about all this stuff, but nobody's calculating up the price tag. And quite frankly, without the funding, it'll be like the California high-speed rail. It'll be 13 years into it, and we will still not have a train.
That's right. It's more political theatrics. And yes, you can't break up the families. They've been here 20 years or 25 years or however many years they were here. Their kids are been born in America. What are they going to do? Come in and send their parents back to wherever, to Mexico? I mean, and you know what? All of the people have used, they in Connecticut, it's cheaper labor. I mean, these guys are contractors. They're building walls. They're doing all of this thing. I mean, they're not hurting anybody. But you know what? But they live in their own enclave because they're always looking over their shoulder to make sure that somebody isn't noticing. So they're so careful, and they're so, they're wonderful, wonderful people, and he's not going to come after them. I doubt it very, very much. I think there would be a public outcry.
One of my pet peeves is that my husband has relatives in Idaho who have a farm. They have a big dairy farm, and they hire Mexican laborers. And yet, we go into town, and one of those people have opened up a storefront, and they go, those damn people open up how dare they open up a store in our town? Like, they hate that there's immigrants, they hate that there's illegal, but they love them to work on their farm because nobody else will do it. I mean, it's such a dichotomy. Right. It's such a diverse dichotomy. I mean, it's crazy. Drives
the price is right.
Yeah, the price is right. Yeah, but how dare they?
Yep.
Another sister-in-law, she got amnesty. She was Thai, and she came here with 5 kids, and now, she's a very successful restaurant in Oregon, very successful. She went through one of I think it was Reagan, had an amnesty, so she got it. She was here illegal, happily contributing to the country, and the people love her, and they love her food, and God bless them. We have 1 minute till the end of the show. Whoever wants to take it and say whatever they want, go ahead.
I'm going to say,
tell.
Anybody listening here, get to work. Get to work. If America gets to work, if we all get up every morning and do our best and work hard and contribute to the economy, play fair, we will be back to the greatest nation on earth.
I say be kind. You know what? Be kind to people. It doesn't matter where they come from. Just be kind.
I think less arguing and more conversation.
I like that. I like that a lot. You can have diversity. Look at Canada. We're a very diverse country. We all seem to get along, and I think differences make for good community. I like it. And New York City the same. We got 15 seconds. Anyway, thank you for joining our show today, Cathy, Sandra, Linda. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your opinions. I loved it. And you know what? We didn't argue. Isn't that great? It can be done. See you next week on FrankieSense and More.
She the one way to turn my world around. She you be the one.